For some of you, summer camp may be the first time you work in a residential setting with children. Trust us when we say that working with children is one of the most important jobs you'll ever do and probably the most fun. Kids are funny, intelligent, creative, and will always surprise you on how much they'll teach you just as much as you'll teach them. Summer camp is a child-centric environment, and everything on camp exists to ensure the campers have a great summer. As a member of camp staff, you have a huge role to play to make sure the campers have a safe and positive experience, and this video will discuss some important things that will help you do your job to the best of your ability.
Thank you!
Child protection is all about keeping the children on camp safe and also protecting yourself. Your camp will most likely have its own child protection training and policies, and in advance of that, we're about to show you some important areas for consideration. Please pay close attention to these areas, which discuss guidelines, as this information will help you fulfill your responsibility to protect children in your care and to protect yourself from accusations of abuse. Camp America believes that children and vulnerable adults should never experience abuse of any kind. We are committed to work in a way that keeps child protection and safeguarding at the centre of our practices and procedures. We require all participants to understand that any inappropriate behaviour towards children or vulnerable adults in the USA will be reported by camps to law enforcement authorities, and the full force of the law will be brought to bear on the perpetrators of abuse. What is child protection? Child protection is a term used to prevent and respond to violence, exploitation and abuse against children. This can include, but is not limited to, physical, sexual and emotional abuse, such as striking a child, inappropriately touching or ridiculing them. What is your role in child protection? All Camp America participants have a role as preventers and are required by law to raise concerns of child abuse to a supervisor or camp director. Furthermore, Camp America participants must also promote the well-being of children on camp by looking, listening and acting appropriately. You are expected to use the personal qualities you demonstrated to us that lend themselves to protecting children, and you'll be expected to show these qualities at all times. These include the correct motivation to work with children, the ability to build and maintain appropriate relationships whilst respecting personal boundaries, a mature and appropriate use of authority to maintain good behaviour, and a healthy interest outside of working with children. Allegations of child abuse, even if the individual may be innocent, carries a huge stigma, and you therefore must always act and demonstrate appropriate behaviours and take extreme care in any interaction with children or vulnerable adults. Children are encouraged to report anything that makes them feel uncomfortable regarding being touched or being treated inappropriately, and therefore not taking the appropriate action may result in false allegations. If you have been hired as a camp counsellor this summer, then you are also a mandatory reporter and are required to report whenever physical, sexual or other types of abuse have been observed or are suspected, or when there is evidence of neglect. Failure to do so could result in you being held liable by both the civil and criminal legal systems for intentionally failing to make a report. So please use this video as a reference tool to prepare yourself for the summer ahead. Camp orientation. Orientation is the 7 to 10 days prior to the children arriving at camp. During this period, time should be taken by the camp staff and director to explain the rules of your camp. Child protection is likely to fill a large proportion of this, and it's vital you listen to what they say, take it in and be prepared to implement these techniques. If you missed orientation for whatever reason, please arrange time with your director or supervisors to go over the material you have missed. It is vitally important you understand the boundaries of what you are and what you are not allowed to do with children. We don't want you to be afraid of interacting with children, nor do we want you to feel as if there should be no physical contact at all, but we do need you to fully understand the boundaries. Understanding this fully will protect you and the children from misrepresentation. What is not appropriate? Inappropriate touching. Children are likely to want to hug or be affectionate towards you at camp. This is perfectly normal behaviour of children. However, you should gently discourage children from doing so, and you should never be the instigator of such affection. Depending on the age of your campers, there may be occasions when you have to hold their hand or help them dress, and this is fine. But simply be considerate and always ensure there are other adults present. Bearing this in mind will make sure that innocent gestures are not misunderstood in any way. Inappropriate behaviour. No physical violence towards the children will be tolerated in any shape or form. This includes, but is not limited to, grabbing, pulling or striking the children in any manner. Should you behave like this towards a child, not only will you be dismissed from camp, but the police may also be involved. You've been hired this summer as a role model. Therefore, you need to lead by example at all times and consider your behaviour around children. Children are highly impressionable. Therefore, you should not encourage or teach them anything that is of an inappropriate or adult nature. Your language should be clean and appropriate not only when speaking to children, but when also to your peers. There's likely to be a massive cultural difference between your country and the USA. Therefore, taboo, suggestive phrases or sexual innuendos should not be used. What is appropriate in your culture may not be appropriate in American culture, and it's very important you understand this in advance. Children are likely to copy your behaviour, and if you wouldn't want the children repeating the language to their parents, then it's probably not appropriate to use in front of them. Sexual or romantic behaviour towards another staff member should not be displayed in front of children, and if you're asked about your relationship status on camp, you should politely decline to answer. It's your business and not theirs. Any sexual or romantic advances from children or campers of any kind should be completely rejected and immediately reported to your supervisor or director. Under US law, anyone under 18 years of age is considered a minor, and therefore any sexual relations with a person under this age is considered statutory rape. Ridicule and bullying. Under no circumstances should an adult be involved in the ridicule or bullying of a child on camp. Verbal aggression such as insults and put-downs is treated as seriously as physical abuse, and bullying of a camper will not be tolerated. Furthermore, if you witness or suspect that a child is being bullied by anyone, then you have a duty of care to report this. Inappropriate dress and nudity. Good judgment should be used when dressing in front of children and also when bathing or showering. Under no circumstances is it appropriate for you to be naked in front of the children, and this needs to be fully understood. Clothing should be appropriate for child interaction, and therefore branded clothing with adult imagery or wording should not be worn at camp. Swimsuits should ideally cover up as much of the body as possible, which means full suits for women and long shorts for men. Images, audio and social media. Participants should consider the content of their iPods, smartphones, reading material and social media sites, as you should not expose children to adult material. We strongly advise that any adult material on your iPod, smartphone or laptop or in your bag is removed before you arrive at camp. Examples include expletive-filled song lyrics, pictures of you on Facebook smoking, drinking or scantily clad, or magazines depicting nudity. In the USA, it is illegal to furnish or display explicit content to a minor, and doing so is taken very seriously. Many camps have a social media policy that dictates you cannot add campers on Facebook or follow them on Twitter. As a rule of thumb, we would strongly recommend you set your privacy settings to private to prevent the campers from finding you. Act responsibly. Protect yourself. Good practice. It is our responsibility as your program sponsor to suitably prepare you for the summer ahead. Child protection boundaries not only exist for the camper's sake, but also for your own safeguarding against compromise or possible misinterpretation. Here are some good practice tips for this summer. 1. Look and listen. Your role this summer is to ensure the safety and well-being of your children at all times, and at Camp America our mantra is, if you can't see or hear your campers, then you're not doing your job properly. Paying close attention to the mood and behaviour of children will enable you to identify situations that may have to be brought to your supervisor or director's attention. 2. The sideways hug. Less personal than a face-to-face hug, this leaves little room for misinterpretation. 3. No touch and no tickle areas. There are areas of children's bodies that are not to be tickled or touched, and this must be respected at all times. Children are instructed and empowered to report if anyone touches them there, even if it's in play. 4. Always work in pairs. Don't allow yourself to be left in a situation where you're one-on-one with a camper. If a child needs to return to the bunk area to change, ensure another adult is present. Always be ready to help out your fellow counsellors in this regard. 5. Use common sense. If you are off camp and crossing the street, it's perfectly acceptable to hold a child's hand for safety reasons. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if a child awakes from a nightmare and asks you to get into bed with you, this is absolutely not appropriate. Understand the context of the situation and always ensure your actions are in the presence of other adults. 6. Remove yourself. If you find yourself in a situation which could be misinterpreted or you're uncomfortable, remove yourself immediately and report it to your supervisor or camp director. It's important to protect yourself as well as the children. 7. Keep communicating. It's not unusual for counsellors to experience difficulties with their campers, and you should always ensure you keep communication with your immediate supervisor that you're having issues with a particular camper's behaviour. They'll have good advice for you to follow, and most importantly, they'll be aware of the situation. 8. Discuss and speak out. Your supervisor and director are there to support you and enable you to have the best possible summer. If there's anything you need to discuss or double check with them regarding any of the areas outlined, please approach them to do so. You can also call Camp America's US office at any time during the summer if you feel more comfortable discussing the situation with us before approaching your supervisor or camp director. We are here to support you throughout your time in the USA, so please make sure you call us if you need to. Should you witness that abuse or a breach of child protection is or has taken place, then you are legally required to report this to your supervisor or camp director. It cannot and should not be ignored. 9. Listen up. Your camp director and senior camp staff are experts in summer camp, so listen to what they say. Take in what they teach you, and most importantly, put what they say into action. You'll be a better staff member because of it. On a final note, this information is not designed to scare you, but we do need you to realise that child protection is an important area on camp. If you have any questions or concerns regarding this, please pick up the phone and call us or speak with your camp director. Further information is included in the Participant Handbook, which you can access via your Camp America online account. It is a requirement that you read this to fully understand what is expected of you at camp. Thanks for listening.